morning, everybody. Lovely to see so many of you here. So I'm Nilufar Fowler, as you know, from WPP, and we're going to talk to you today about how to scale the metaverse, so how to make it real for now. This whole session started when we launched a strategic partnership between WPP and Epic Games somewhat 4 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago. And actually this partnership, and in fact all of our strategic partnerships with technology partners, are actually incredibly important to our strategy as WPP, because we talk about ourselves being a creative transformation company, and technology partnerships are core to our strategy on how we accelerate those partnerships and how we accelerate that transformation for our clients. The Epic partnership is actually one of our most broad-ranging partnerships. So we talk about partnerships at WPP as always needing to cover 4 core pillars. And the Epic partnership actually delivers against every one of these pillars incredibly broadly for us. So we talk about how we build together. So how do we co-create solutions for our clients and for their consumers to deliver transformation? We talk about how we deliver value. So how do we give our clients a competitive advantage? But really critically, we also talk about how do we grow. So we have a wonderful incubator program going with Epic Games, where many of our clients are working with Hogarth and with Epic to develop out some really new solutions as to how we use Fortnite and Unreal Engine, which we're going to talk about. And we have a really, really large scaled enablement program, so how we put our people through training so that we build capabilities in the metaverse. So Ryan's going to talk to you a little bit more about what that partnership looks like.
Great. So nice to see everybody. Thank you for coming out. So most folks, does anyone have anyone in their family or themselves that plays Fortnite? Yeah, most folks. So most folks think of Epic Games as a game company, right? Fortnite is perhaps the or one of the most successful video games of all time, 400 million users, players, over 1 billion connections. People instinctively think of Epic as a video game company. What you should think of Epic as is more of an ecosystem company. So our philosophy is we kind of battle test technologies in our own games, our own interactive experiences, and then we make them available to the community. And so that's kind of what you see on the slide here is we will take the 3D engine that is used to create Fortnite, for example, and we plug it into other industries. So if you've ever seen The Mandalorian on Disney+, that was all produced using Unreal Engine. Architectural renderings, and as you'll see in some of the examples of work we're doing with Hogarth, in the advertising and the marketing industry as well. So this kind of lends itself to the 2 pillars of our partnership. I'd be remiss if at the start of a Metaverse presentation we don't try to define the Metaverse. I'm not going to try to do this in an incredibly detailed way because I'm sure we're going to be wrong. This is in such a state of infancy. What I will say at the highest level, the way we think about this is the Metaverse is a 3D iteration or version of the current 2D internet. So if you think of most of the way that we interact with the internet, it's mostly on this. It's on a flat screen. It's typically scrolling by yourself on 2D content, texts, images, and video. So we, at the highest level, think of the metaverse as what does that look like in 3D? So we think the conversion of that 2D experience into something that you're experiencing with a sense of space around you, a sense of presence, that you can interact with that content in a way that you can't do in 2D, and in a way that is way more social than the current ways of consuming information. And so we think of basically 2 pillars of our partnership with WPP, and this is the way I would encourage brands and agencies to think about this, is how do I do this? How do I get ready for this? The first is, how do I create my brand in 3D? So whether you're a CPG company or an electronics company, if you assume that the next version of the internet is 3D, what does your product look like in 3D? You know, what are actors? This is a product that we have called MetaHumans, of creating synthetic humans. So how do you create your brand and your brand experiences in 3D? And then the second is, what does it look like when you plug that into an environment like a Fortnite or a Roblox or a Minecraft, where you have hundreds of millions of people that are interacting in this 3D fashion? So those are the 2 pillars of our partnership, 3D asset creation and then immersive brand experiences. I'm going to turn it over to Richard, who's going to talk about some of the really amazing work that Hogarth and WPP are doing around some of this technology to build brand assets.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. And so I guess the key point I'd like to get across, and hopefully will come across through some of the work that we're going to show today, and some of the examples we've got, is that we don't see this as something which is coming in the future. The fully fledged metaverse might be 5-10 years away. But some of the skills, some of the tools, some of the capabilities, some of the experiences are here and now, and hopefully that will come through very clearly in the work. So we established a thing within WPP and Hogarth called the Metaverse Foundry, because actually a lot of the skills for working in the metaverse are traditional skills which have existed within the production world. So we brought together teams of virtual artists, of 3D modelers, of CG experts, of coders, of people who understand experience. And we put that together in a thing called the Metaverse Foundry, and working in partnership with Epic, working in partnership with other parts of WPP, and primarily in partnership with our clients, we're really seeing this come to life at the moment. So, again, can't start a metaverse presentation without saying what we think the metaverse is. We've got a slightly different version from Ryan. Virtual worlds is a very important part of it. Virtual worlds is primarily what we're going to talk about today. But actually, I think, you're not either in or out of the metaverse. The metaverse is going to be, a persistent experience that will enable people to move seamlessly in and out in a way that a lot of people already do. And so augmented reality, where you don't need to have a headset on and you don't need to be lost in a virtual world, is a very easy entry point for brands into it. And all of the hardware that everybody carries around with them, yes, it's 2D, but it can be now used to project 3D in a very different way from before. And so we're seeing a lot happening there. NFTs, again, without going into any huge detail about it, in our world, we see these living or these dynamic or these NFTs which accrue value over time, not in terms of pieces of art value, but value in terms of utility. So a lot of the work that we're doing with NFTs is around loyalty. It's around reward. It's around creating a greater engagement between brands and consumers. An NFT at its heart is a contract. It's a contract between a consumer and a brand, if that's the two ends of that contract you choose to have, and you can have something which accrues value in that relationship over time. And we're seeing a lot of brands that are moving in that world, and there are some interesting ownership models in there as well in terms of how value gets shared. And so, again, we could talk for hours about that, but I've been told not to. And then finally, commerce. Obviously, commerce is super important in this world, whether it is people selling products for the metaverse, whether it's people selling products in the metaverse, or whether it's using the metaverse to enrich a hybrid consumer experience. And so again, obviously commerce drives a huge amount of this activity. So our world is trying to simplify the metaverse into these four areas, but today we're going to focus on how we create assets for this world. So here's a simple quiz. One of these is a photograph, and one of these was rendered in UE4. And you might not imagine that UE4 is, capable of producing this unbelievably photorealistic. And the answer is, which one's UE4, which one's real? Doesn't really matter, does it? Because they, obviously once it's in UE4, once it's in that engine, you can manipulate it, you can do what you like with it, you can place it into different positions, you can animate it, you can put it in different circumstances, different environments, you can use all of the world building skills. And so this is, I would say don't underestimate how big a change this will be to the way that brands think about producing their digital twins. And there's the answer. The one on the left was the UE4, and the one on the right was the photo. So that's a revolution in how work gets produced, because then you can start thinking about how you produce these virtual assets and put them into realistic situations. And just as an aside, that's not a real person either. That's a metahuman. And so increasingly you're going to see that you can that's a metahuman too as well. You don't believe what you see is what I would tell you. If you look carefully at crowd scenes in productions now, a lot of those extras are going to be metahumans. Eventually, all extras will be metahuman. Why would you pay people to sit in the rain for 14 hours for their 2 seconds of fame when you can just use these people that you can create, and you can change the can, and you can change the person, and you can change everything that you do there. And so we're seeing, this is transforming the way that we're thinking about making work. And it leads into another area for us as well. So, again, thinking about, we can think about just producing for the metaverse. We can just think about living, pardon me, in the metaverse. But, Ryan talked about Mandalorian earlier. Mandalorian is the poster child for using virtual production techniques in order to create impossible environments. This is real world stuff that we're doing at the moment. We've got a partnership with a company called Final Pixel, who are experts in the area of virtual production. So virtual production is essentially replacing location shoots and replacing green screen shoots, essentially by having pre-rendered CG 3D environments built typically in Unreal Engine, so it's taking filmmaking, it's taking content creation back to the early days of Hollywood. It's taking it back to what you see in the camera is what you then deliver out there. What you're getting is much more natural performances from talent. What you're getting is the need for post-production dramatically reduced. And so you can create these environments that you can use time and time again. You can just imagine that if you are a CPG company that shoots in a household interior, you shoot in a kitchen, then having those kitchens for all the different cultures around the world, using real kitchens that either you have built or that you go in and use time and time again, is expensive, it's time consuming, nobody likes shooting in these environments. You can have these sets that you reuse time and time and time again. You can, using technology, you can simultaneously shoot against two sets. You can, if you're paying for talent for that day, you can have that talent appearing in 20 different locations during the course of one day shooting. You can have it dusk for 24 hours at a time if you need it to be. The advantages are just massive, and the difference in, I could show you hundreds of examples. You won't spot the difference. You won't spot the difference between shot in a virtual environment and shot on location. It's very good for the environment. It's very good for sustainability. It's very, very good for brands that want to get their message to market quickly. It's very good for brands who want to think about, how they can have different ways of creating work and then deploying immediately. So we see the confluence of this whole world of virtual production, the way that we make it, the way that we think about the assets that appear within advertising, the way that those get placed in the metaverse, the way that those things get monetized in the metaverse. I guess we're saying the revolution is coming. We're saying the revolution's already here. We've got, we'll show another couple of pieces of work. Ryan will show another couple of pieces of work later, which really, I think, hit home what's already happening. But I'll hand back to Nils now, because one of the fun things that we're doing in terms of virtual production is, if you're going to create these 3D environments, you've got to capture them somehow.
So this is how we capture these 3D environments. So we have a lovely little dog here. This is Spot. So Spot is a Boston Dynamics robot. And what we do now is, rather than flying people around the world to film in real locations, we send Spot out, and he travels at enormous speed, capturing very, very quickly all of the environments around us. That then gets rendered in Unreal Engine, and we shoot people in front of the render rather than in the real location itself. It's an incredibly good, sustainable way of driving production. So we as WPP have made a commitment to be a net zero company. This is a key way that we're going to get to that goal, is by producing using things like Spot instead. He also, by the way, dances. He danced with Paris Hilton and Cannes this year. Bad hero.
I mean, again, like the theme here is this stuff feels so futuristic, right? But it's happening. As Richard said, there's hundreds of examples of photorealistic 3D brand experiences that are indistinguishable from the eye, from being real. So that's the first part. First sort of challenge to brands and agencies is, how do I create my brand in a 3D way? How do I use game technology to do that? And there's a bunch of examples. The second is, great, well, now I have it. I figured out how my shoe brand looks in 3D. How do I plug it into places where the people are, whether it's for marketing reasons or gaming commerce reasons? And so we think about these as sort of immersive brand experiences. Fortnite is the game, the platform that we create. We think of Fortnite as kind of an early version of a metaverse that is still going to take a while to get here. What do we mean by that? It is huge, hundreds of millions of people. There's a functioning economy, rich, interactive 3D entertainment experiences. All of the sort of components that you start to see as the metaverse comes to life, oftentimes are most, in their earliest form, deployed in platforms that used to be games. And so if you've ever played Fortnite, or if your family's ever played Fortnite, you mostly think of it as a game. It's called Battle Royale. It's a mode where you sort of jump off of a bus in the sky, and then you battle each other to the finish line. That was what made Fortnite so successful. But what's happening is now Fortnite is transitioning from a game that we make as a publisher into essentially an open world platform that anyone can build anything. And so we've seen this kind of mode of battle now transitioning into a place where you have fashion shows, you have film premieres, you have racing games, you have sports events, you have all of these different things that are starting to mirror real life. And so I'll show you a little video of sort of how that is transitioning to give you a sense of that.
Welcome to Fortnite, where you can play a game of Battle Royale with millions of players. But you can also do so much more, like live out your pro sport fantasies, run through a psychedelic obstacle course, go spelunking, explore sunken ruins, play a gazillion games of chess, marvel at cities made of steel, surf the land down under, travel to the far edges of space, even jump cars in the middle of the ocean next to a giant basketball hoop, and then take some time to recharge with a brief moment in nature. The opportunities to create in Fortnite are endless, so let's make something awesome.
So if you think of some of those things you saw, like wildly different experiences, how many of them were created by Epic? Not a single one. And so this is becoming, these platforms are becoming these sort of democratized content creation places where brands are thinking about, how does my brand come to life in 3D? So to make it practical, there's 3 ways that we encourage brands to think about this in descending order of complexity. The most complex is to say, I, as a brand, am going to render an entire world, bespoke, de novo, from scratch, and I'm going to make it persist through time. So I'm going to drive people to it. I'm going to create reasons for them to come back. To be totally clear, that is hard. It is expensive. There's some brands that probably should never do this, and there are probably some brands that should. And then there's another pillar, which is I want to do it more like a marketing activity. So I'm going to build this experience, but I'm going to have it live for 3 months, 6 months. I'm going to get people into it so they can interact with my brand. But I'm not going to try to essentially become a game developer overnight. And then the third is probably the simplest, which is I'm just going to take my brand, integrate it into a place where people already are. So this is sort of a really practical framework to think about. I'll give you 2 examples of this. You're going to hear from Adidas later on. This is actually some work that came out of MediaCom and SuperAwesome, Epic, and Adidas in Germany. And so essentially this is Oswego, a new shoe line that they have. And what they did is, what you see on the left-hand side is they partnered with 3 different influencers to concept what would your sort of wildest fantasies look like if you were going to create a sort of streetwear experience. And so this is content on TikTok. They created this content. You'll see when she stamps her foot, it reveals this world. And then what you see on the right-hand side of the screen is this beautiful, really rich, high-fidelity 3D world that Adidas created. You can walk into sort of a replica of one of the first Adidas shoe apparel shops. There's all these mini games. There's these quests. So this is an example of Adidas really invested in building an experience that is going to persist for a while. Right? So this isn't just as turnkey as running some banner ads somewhere. They invested in this, and the product, the experience is really beautiful. It's really cool. And the idea of like millions of people spending 10, 20 minutes with your brand voluntarily, where else on earth does that happen? It's really hard to think of that. The second one, just as an example, is some great work that came out of Hogarth, again with Epic and SuperAwesome, is Sky Broadband, a broadband company in the UK, says obviously their whole theme, their brand promise is around speed, right? That's their sort of competitive advantage. So they built their brand into an existing speed run, or like a mode of play that's already happening within Fortnite. And again, this is a way to say, I'm not going to build a thing from scratch. I'm going to partner with somebody that has an experience like this, and I'm going to build my brand into it. So 2 different ways to think about that. The last thing I'll leave you with in terms of practicality is this requires a totally different mode of thinking about brand activation than what is common in most digital brand marketing. So it has to start with an insight. Do you know as a brand what is going to make people want to go to your experience and play with it and spend time with it? Generally, it's not. And so you have to figure out who is the talent that you can partner with to do that. Then you have to build it. You have to figure out what is that integration or that experience? How do I partner with someone that can actually build the thing? How do I build community around it? How do I take that experience, cut it into other content, and push it out into the world and amplify it? So as a realistic point, this is a rather complex thing. It is possible today. Brands are doing this today, but we really encourage brands to think about the entire wheel here when they're bringing this to life. The last thing I'll share is just another really, really cool example of some work that came out of VMLY&R and Hogarth at WPP that used Unreal Engine to say, well, let's just not create this thing in Fortnite. what if we plug it into the open, different ecosystem? And so what you see here, I don't know if anyone's experienced this, this is a virtual reality experience in partnership with EMI and the band Bastille, where you can put on your Oculus headset and experience and fly through essentially a next generation virtual concert where Bastille is premiering some of their new music. Really incredible. I don't know if anyone's ever done this, but like the level of immersiveness and experience with this, if you think about my brand does a lot with music, what does it look like if I brought this into the consumer community like this? And it didn't just deploy on Facebook. The way that you see these little dancing pixelated people is we actually captured people with Xbox volumetric scanning things. You can sort of like create your avatar and move your avatar. So a big theme that you see here is these technologies are now not just being deployed within the companies that create them, like Epic, but they're being deployed across Facebook. They're using Microsoft technology. So it's becoming a really, really interesting, really rich ecosystem of players that are bringing together some of this technology to make it practical. So I'll wrap with this. Again, a lot of this stuff feels futuristic. It's really cool. It's really neat. I mean, we have robot dogs walking around scanning landscapes to make virtual productions, synthetic humans. But it's real. And it's happening today. It's possible today. There are partners like WPP and Epic that can help you do it. So we encourage you to get started, get your hands dirty, play around with the technology, and it's really exciting times. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. And
thank you.
Have a good rest of the day.